Video of this meeting is streamed on YouTube and will be also available on Facebook and the village website. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Clerk Saladino to call the roll.
Trustee Augustine.
Here.
Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee McGee. Trustee O'Brien.
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
President Kugler.
Here. And Trustee McGee notified me that she was unable to attend tonight. At this time, I'd ask the public to stand and Clerk Saladino to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To begin the President's report, the first thing we have is a proclamation establishing April 25th, which is Friday, as Arbor Day in the village of LaGrange. The village is well known for its tree-lined streets and dedication to a healthy, thriving urban tree canopy. So Arbor Day shall be marked with an Arbor Day tree planting on Friday, April 25th at St. Cletus Elementary School and shall serve to recognize its students' efforts to improve our urban forest. And again, that's going to be on April 25th at 10 a.m. All are welcome. And so please join us. At this time, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas the village of LaGrange, characterized by its stately and tree-lined streets. And whereas the village makes a continued effort to preserve the aesthetic, beauty, and environmental benefit of its tree canopy by appropriate urban forestry planning and reforestation. And whereas the forestry and tree planting program will continue to be an integral part of our services the village of LaGrange provides to its residents, businesses, and schools. Whereas the village of LaGrange recognizes the benefits of and desirability of a healthy urban forest. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the village of LaGrange does hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day. So again, we look forward to that on Friday, April 25th. This year's spring cleanup having begun today. So again, the spring cleanup is where you can put the special garbage sticker, and the Flood Brothers will take all of your household debris. And historically, people put it out starting on Saturday, and a lot of the things are picked up and reused by people. But anyway, so people north of 47th had the spring pickup today. People south of 47th will have their spring pickup on Thursday. Please note that participating requires a separate spring cleanup sticker that's affixed for an unlimited number of items to be disposed of. And again, spring stickers are available for people south of 47th at locations where we normally sell stickers. And all information is available on our website. This week's also National Public Safety Telecommunication Week. We express our gratitude and appreciation to our telecommunicators and all of our dispatch public safety professionals for providing these vital public safety services to our community. As many know, the work of the village relies on volunteers and residents that are willing to volunteer to serve on our boards and commissions. We appreciate residents who wish to serve. Please contact either Village Manager Knight or myself. Our email addresses are on the web page. We are in the process of considering appointments and reappointments, and I encourage anybody interested to submit a letter of their interest. As always, I'd like to share my gratitude for all board and commission members for their dedication to serving the community. Earth Day is April 22nd. I'm going to borrow Jack's computer for a second. Earth Day is April 22nd. I want to take the opportunity to wish everybody a happy Earth Day, which will be celebrating the 55th year. There are many ways to care for the planet, and Grange, I encourage you to visit the village's website for a list of actions that can be developed by the village's Environmental Quality Commission. Public Works is going to be doing, or has been doing, the annual hydrant flushing program. It's expected to be completed by the end of May. The purpose of hydrant flushing is to purge sediment which is accumulated on the bottom of the water mains and exercise valves to ensure their proper operation. Crews plan to flush hydrants at times during the day and night, Monday through Friday, depending on the location of the hydrant, traffic patterns, and other factors. Signs will be posted on streets notifying residents where crews will be working in advance of the flushing activities. Immediately following the flushing of your nearest hydrant, run your cold water several minutes to draw in clear water prior to doing your laundry. For more information regarding hydrant flushing and water quality, again, please visit our village's web page. I do want to take the opportunity to remind everybody that the village's sewer backup plan is still in existence. We have funds available for residents that want to either do a overhead sewers or a check valve. Please contact the village staff on that. We're encouraging everyone who hasn't taken advantage to take advantage while those funds are available. And at this time, I would ask Manager Knight if there's a manager's report.
There is, and thank you, President Kukler. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple reminders on Public Works Services. Some of the seasonal efforts that they undergo have initiated. This includes the village's monthly brush pickup, which will continue through the month of November. Pickup begins at 7 a.m. on the first Monday of the month. Branches need to be less than 8 feet in length and 8 inches in diameter. And to participate, please ensure that brush is placed in the parkway for removal the Sunday prior to the week of pickup. In addition, crews have been out repairing streets that have developed potholes as a result of the winter's freeze-thaw cycle. Crews are working diligently to repair those potholes to get village streets ready for the summer. And everyone's patience and understanding as they go through that process is appreciated. Lastly, village offices will be closed on Friday to reopen on Monday morning. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Village Manager Knight. Clerk Saladino, I request that you read the items on the consent agenda, followed by those appearing on the current business.
Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by a single motion and vote because they already have been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, a resolution approving the purchase of a 2025 S64 T4 Bobcat skid steer loader from Atlas Bobcat. Item B, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2025 Ford F-150 from Curry Motors. Item C, a resolution authoring the purchase of a 2025 Ford F-250 from Sutton Ford. Item D, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2026 Freightliner single-axle 108 SD Plus from Trans-Chicago Truck Group and upfitting services by Monroe Truck Group Equipment, Inc. Item E, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2026 Freightliner tandem axle 108 SD Plus from Trans-Chicago Truck Group and uplifting services by Monroe Truck Group Equipment, Inc. Item F, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of village property. Item G, a resolution requesting closure of Grange Road from 47th Street to Burlington Avenue for the annual pet parade. Item H, April 14th, 2025 consolidated voucher. Item I, minutes of the Village Board of LaGrange of Trustees meeting March 24th, 2025. Current business. This agenda item includes consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025-26 operating and capital improvements budget. Item B, an ordinance granting a design review permit for 14th South LaGrange Road. Item C, an ordinance approving a special use permit, site plan, and design review permit to authorize co-working in conjunction with retail sales at 30 South LaGrange Road.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters on tonight's agenda. So I'd ask anybody that has comments to please go to the microphone.
My name is John Pluto. I live at 718 East Avenue. What I would like to speak to the village board about is the resolution adopting the 2025-26 operating and capital improvements budget. When I spoke at the 2025-26 budget workshop back at the beginning of March, I was assured money was going to be allocated for the interior and exterior inspection of the water reservoir at Plainfield and East Avenue. As I reviewed the fiscal budget, I have not found any line items for testing or repairing that facility. I have checked Fund 40, the Capital Funds Project, Fund 50, the Water Fund, also to no avail. I have not noticed any projected funds for desperately needed routine maintenance to ensure long-term performance of one of our most important pieces of infrastructure in this village. Instead, I have found page 100 of the Capital Fund strategies. Bear with me. There's one line in here for strategic priorities. Execute routing capital maintenance programs aimed at sustaining existing infrastructure. And on the next page, this was strategic priorities for the other fund. Inspect and implement maintenance activities at reservoir and standpipe. Utilize recommendations of inspection reports to plan painting and sealing efforts. As I searched the line items, I found no money allotted for this. So this sounds to me, this is going to be something that's going to get kicked down the road for a couple of years, where Mr. Colby told me in 2024 of June that we were going to have an inspection then. This is 2 years I've been working on this, and we haven't done anything to that facility.
I believe an inspection's forthcoming, and then the following year we would budget for any repairs.
When is the date? Are we doing it now, or are we going to do it at the end of 2026, 25? When are we going to do this?
I believe in 2025. I'm not sure if we have any better estimate on dates.
Well, the reason is because
I was just going to ask if we had any better estimate on dates.
The reason being is when I gave you the picture back in 2023 of the tank with the large cracks with the effervescence coming out of it, the village took and power washed it. Well, according to the engineering reports, that's probably the worst thing to do if you don't seal it and coat it, because now the crack is open and water goes in that, and in the wintertime it freezes and it knocks the shotcrete loose, okay? So we've gone to try and hide something, and now we've created another problem. So I'm going to tell you the long experience I had with FOIAs here. The first one that I sent, it was, please send information when the last robotic or dive test was done on the village water reservoir located at Plainfield and East Avenue. All information on power washing and protective coatings. I got it back and it said, no records for robotic or dive test on the water reservoir at Plainfield and East Avenue. So since 1982, when we built this, you're telling me that we didn't inspect it. Well, we know that. So I went to Plan 2 because Plan 1 didn't work. And I decided to do my first FOIA request, which Paul knows about. I searched the village archives and I found the village board meeting from December 10th, 2012, and I found task order 17. And that told me that there was going to be an interior and an exterior and a bunch of other work done to that tank. And there was. So, but it wasn't that easy because when I sent the next FOIA request, I got an extension and I got the runaround. It took me 5 FOIAs to get all the information that I needed. I got some of the pages and not all of the pages, and most of them were redacted, but I didn't care. I wanted the whole report, and you can redact it, but give me the whole thing. Don't give me 3 pages. It was 39 pages. So, you know, I've got a bitter taste of democracy in this village on how you treat your residents that are asking educated questions about our water supply here. So after going through all of that, I'm gonna read to you what the engineering report basically said. And it gave us, it needed some exterior rehabilitation and some interior rehabilitation. And after I got the report, I asked for any information of those repairs that were done. And in fact, there was an existing frame hatch that needed to comply with the 10 state standard for safety. That had to be done as well. Well, as far as I'm concerned, from the FOIA request, we didn't do any of this. Well, I know we didn't do the protective coatings because I live a block away from it. So, in conclusion, this whole repair job would have cost the village $150,000 back in 2013, and nothing was done then. And they had recommended, it said, however, based on our observations, certain remedial work should be performed to ensure long-term performance. Exposed rebar on the interior and exterior of the dome should be repaired to prevent any further deterioration, and exterior dome and walls sealed with high-performance coatings. This would provide an additional wearing course for the concrete surfaces as well as improve aesthetics of the tank. In addition, the interior piping shows signs of corrosion. So, I hope that we're going to put some money into this budget and do some work on that tank. Because if we leave that go another winter, we're just going to have a problem with the shotcrete that's on the side of it. And if you know anybody that's got a stucco house, they maintain it because otherwise it falls apart. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto.
Hello, everyone. Al Foreman from 7th Avenue in LaGrange. You all know me. I have some comments tonight on the consent agenda as well as the current business, the budget. So a couple of observations about the consent agenda. Item A, which is the Bobcat skid loader, I noticed that the board report letter dated today, has a $4,000 difference in it from the resolution and the quote from Atlas Bobcat. So it's apparently a typo. But just to prove that, things get read, I noticed that. Then switching to item H in the consent agenda, which is a consolidated voucher. I got to admit, I haven't looked at them much in the past, but I did this one, right? And I appreciate all the detail on the checks and the direct deposits, 30 pages of detail that's shown there in alphabetical order. But there's no information about the credit card transactions and the payroll. So I'm just kind of curious, if you can, share with us, what the board does to make sure they're comfortable approving those line items in the consolidated voucher.
We rely on the auditors to audit.
Okay. And I don't want to play too many questions, but I'm just kind of curious, how often do the auditors audit?
I'm sorry, what?
How often do the auditors audit?
Once a year.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's it for a consent agenda. So now I'd like to turn attention to the capital and operating budget for 2026. So 3 weeks ago, I was here and I provided written and verbal feedback at the public hearing. And I apologize that my comments were too long, but now in reflection, I should have presented my feedback as a punch list, simply stating, this is what I think needs to be revisited, please fix it. Now, the budget that you have before you today is unchanged from the version that was used at the public hearing 3 weeks ago. So my question is, why conduct a public hearing if feedback is not considered and incorporated? So that said, my recommendation to the board tonight is to postpone approval of the operating and capital budget for 2025-26. Postpone approval until the next meeting on April 28th. Why? I think there's still numerous inconsistencies in the budget document. If you rewind and use my documentation from the public hearing, you can trace my thoughts, I hope. If not, please ask me. I'll also point out that in the last pages of 180, Appendix B, which is a write-up about the budget process on page A4, it states the final budget is adopted at the second board meeting in April. And it includes revisions from the budget workshops. So, perhaps there's a reason that it's accelerated and, maybe I'm privy to or not, but I still think there's time to revisit and maybe do a little cleanup. Now, I do very much appreciate the fact that Mr. Knight has invited me to meet with him, and we're going to do that on Wednesday of this week. And that will be a further opportunity for each of us to appreciate each other's perspective. So, again, asking you to reconsider and not rush. And I'll close by just simply asking if any of you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Sue Reardon, and I am the owner of Sweet Spot Co-working at 21 South LaGrange Road in Suite 200, which is on the second floor of the building. I'm also a longtime resident of LaGrange. I'm here to summarize 4 points that I have in opposition of the brick and mortar's special use permit application for the build-out of 30 South LaGrange Road. The first one deals with sales tax revenue opportunity for this prime retail space. This proposed special use permit will reduce the first floor space for retail and sales tax revenue from 100% to 18%. And we as a village afford that. And we as a village afford to take what is a contributor to the village of LaGrange's income and our property taxes and just say, we're going to put that aside. We're not worried about it. Given the recent dramatic federal and state government changes, grants and funding opportunities may no longer be available. LaGrange has been incredible at seeking grants and opportunities and have won so many. I don't know if that's going to be the case going forward. I think we should all consider that at risk. Significant infrastructure projects are looming and need to be funded. Uncertainty with the current economic climate, with talk of a recession or even worse, is on the horizon. When I open up my property tax bill, I'm always ready to fall over when I see how much it accelerated each year. Then I go to vote in the recent election, and there's another referendum looking for more money. Property taxes are a big part of commercial rents. How often does a business owner bypass LaGrange because the cost of opening a business here is too high? And given those points, we are looking at removing a source of income within downtown LaGrange. I'm opposed to that. There's also, with the comprehensive plan, this proposal is in direct opposition to that plan. It states the C1 core downtown district is to continue to prohibit first floor office use in this zoning designation and maintain the retail-driven character of downtown LaGrange. The last Planning Commission review on this proposal questioned whether co-working was really office space. However you want to spin it, whether traditional or non-traditional, co-working is office space. The co-working industry views it as such, property appraisers views it as office space, and property tax assessors views it as office space. Therefore, according to the comprehensive plan, office space is prohibited on the first floor in this location, and I think we should comply with that prohibition. One of these important elements of the special use permit is, does this special use, does this permit, does this application or proposal provide a public benefit? It states whether and to what extent the proposal use and development at the particular location is necessary or desirable to provide a service or a facility that is in the interest of the public convenience or that will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood or community. What will drive more transactions and traffic to LaGrange's CBD? Retail, restaurant, or a co-working office space? Co-working members and users do bring business to the other local businesses in the area. They absolutely do. However, not to the extent that a broader base of customers for retail or a restaurant. The smaller the retail component, the lesser the benefit to the village. There are 3 co-working businesses in downtown LaGrange. 2 of the 3 are less than 300 feet from the proposed 30 South LaGrange space. Let me make this clear, because I'm not sure if I have in the past. These 2 existing co-working businesses offer the same services as proposed by brick and mortar, and they're within 300 feet of each other. All offer shared desks, day offices, dedicated desks, and meeting room use. They offer these workplaces on an on-demand, pay-as-you-go basis, or as a membership-based agreement. The existing co-working businesses are on the second floor as stipulated by the zoning code and the comprehensive plan. Co-working office space in a first floor space is not a requirement for success, but a preferred by the business because co-working is their primary business model, and they want to take as much space as possible for the co-working part of the business. I get it. I'm not opposed to brick and mortar opening on the second floor as I and my other co-working business in town. But making it a special use case, I don't think is appropriate. I believe that when a business requests a special use permit for first floor non-conforming use, they include a permit-required retail component simply to be allowed to use the first floor space for their primary part of their business. I don't believe that brick and mortar's commitment is really to the retail portion, which is why the allocated space square footage is minimal to comply with the special use standards. There's no public benefit in this proposed co-retailing, co-working model, in my opinion. If the board approves the special use permit, you will open the floodgates to other building owners who would just love to have the option to expand their second floor office space to the first floor and call it co-working. Some are already talking about it. For these reasons, I do not believe there's a public benefit to LaGrange to approve the special use permit and should not be approved. And I'm not alone in this belief. On March 17th, in a discussion thread on the popular LaGrange social and around town Facebook group, people responded to a post regarding a potential co-working business opening in the former Nixon's building. The response was unprompted and extensive. 12 individual comments indicating that there was already enough co-working use in the prime retail space, in the downtown LaGrange were also liked. Each of those comments were also liked by 48 additional posters. 3 individual comments expressed a concern for the loss of sales tax revenue, which were liked by 16 additional posters. 7 individual comments indicated a preference for retail restaurant use in the prime retail space, which were liked by 47 additional posters. There were a few other one-off comments, including 5 that said how much they missed Nixon's restaurant, which were liked by 37 additional posters. Similar thoughts were expressed at the March 19th Conversations with a Trustee hosted by the LGBA. We hold these public sessions in order to get feedback from the community. However, people can't always make these sessions. So is this completely scientific? Absolutely not. But this is feedback. This is what people are thinking, and I think it needs to be considered as part of the decision of the board. So I respectfully ask that you support the vision and intent of the LaGrange Comprehensive Business Plan and the feedback from residents of the community by not approving this special use permit. And I thank you for your selfless service. I don't think I could do what you do. And I appreciate the time and the energy that you put into it. And I'm sure the rest of the community does as well. And I also appreciate the opportunity to express my thoughts and to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reardon.
Hi, my name is Mike Lambert. I'm a 10-year resident of LaGrange. I love LaGrange and I love co-working. I've actually been co-working for 15 years, started a number of places in the city, moved to LaGrange, and I'm happy, so happy that this was something available in this community. One of the things that I've discovered over the time, and you know, with the special permit coming up for first floor has been something for restaurants, retail, things that I walk down with my family, and this is what we see. I've done co-working on the second floor everywhere else I've been. We talk about public benefits. I've tried. I talk to many people in this community, our neighbors. Come work with me at this co-working facility. I love it. You guys will too. And our community isn't knocking down the doors for co-working. It doesn't mean that it doesn't belong in LaGrange. I feel that co-working is a great asset for this community, but I feel that first floor should be reserved for the things that our community benefits from. Things that people walk by, see, go visit, go in with your family, eat. That's what I think makes LaGrange so special. Thank you all for your service to this community. Thanks for your time, for listening. Please consider all of this as you take into thoughts how to proceed with this.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert.
Thank you.
Seeing no other public comments, I would ask for a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
I move for acceptance of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale and Trustee O'Brien. Any comments on the consent agenda?
President Kugler, as previously stated, I recuse myself from voting on any agenda items related to the village prosecutor.
Thank you. Trustee Gale.
Do we need to clear up that the difference between the price of the skip loader, or I can't remember which item it was, and that the yeah, it was item A.
That was item A. Do you know if there's an
Yeah, I believe
explanation?
that was correctly pointed out that the board report did not have the right amount. However, the resolution and the quote are the correct amount.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the resolution's correct. Okay. Very good.
Thank you, Trustee Gale and Village Manager Knight, and Mr. Foreman for bringing that to people's attention. With that said, any other comments? I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Moving on to our current business, item A is a resolution adopting the 25-26 operating capital improvements budget. And I'm going to refer that to Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Kugler. And before I begin, in the 6 years that I've served up here as a trustee, this would mark the first year that I have had, that I think that any of us have witnessed in-person feedback from several residents over the process. I, for one, find it to have been helpful, informative, and I really appreciate it, and look forward to us working together to resolve any of the concerns that residents have going forward. Tonight, the village's annual operating and capital improvements budget for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2025, is a key document that sets forth spending priorities and anticipated revenue sources. Budget meetings were held, as you know, over the last 6 months in development of the proposed fiscal 2025-2026 budget. The budget process began in December of 2024 with a public hearing of the preliminary property tax levy and adoption of the final 2024 property tax levy. Continued with workshops to discuss capital projects in February and operating budgets in March. A public hearing was held as part of the village board meeting on March 24th, 2025, to provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the budget, as they did. The general fund, which is the village's main operating budget, reflects an estimated expenditure of fund balance reserves of $1,884,741 at fiscal year end of April 30th, 2026. Based upon the revenue and expenditure projections appearing in the village's 5-year operating and capital budget plan, the general fund reserve balance projection is 53.76% at the end of the fiscal year 2029-2030, which complies with the village policy of having a 50 to 75% annual budget operating expenditures in reserve. Capital improvements remain a top priority for the village, part of the village's commitment to aging infrastructure, the budget includes $8.2 million of capital expenditures scheduled to occur in the next year. The budget also includes $50,000 for a financial consultant to assist the village in exploring and considering financing options for the over $21 million of capital infrastructure projects identified in the infrastructure capital plan. Long-term financial impacts of the financing options that balance operational needs and financial sustainability will be evaluated as part of that effort, with the goal of efficiency and effectively financing critical infrastructure projects while sustaining the village's financial health. The village's proposed budget includes a continued commitment of $2.5 million in capital funding annually, which may serve to support bond funding for infrastructure projects in the future. The proposed resolution serves to approve the fiscal year 2025-26 budget with subsequent fiscal year budgets through 2029-2030 included for reference and to support comprehensive planning aimed at ensuring the village's strong financial position well into the future. Staff has recommended, and I motion, for approval of the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025-2026 operating and capital improvements budget.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson. Any comments regarding item A? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Again, I would point out that the budget is a planning document. It is available, or we are able to change as things come up and are brought to our attention. So we will do that if required. Moving on to item B, an ordinance granting a design review permit for 14 South LaGrange Road. It's going to be referred to Trustee Peterson. It is what is often referred to as the Chase Bank Building.
GW LaGrange LLC, the owner of 14 South LaGrange Road, was granted a design review permit in conjunction with other zoning entitlements related to the relocation of Chase Bank from 14 South LaGrange Road to 101 North LaGrange Road on December 11th, 2023. While construction has been ongoing at 101 North LaGrange Road, construction at 14 South LaGrange Road has largely been unable to proceed, and in the interim, the 2023 design review permit expired. As the property owner has engaged in potential tenants, certain elements of the interior floor plan are being revised, impacting the exterior facade. Accordingly, the property owner has submitted a revised proposal for a design review permit. The Design Review Commission reviewed the application on March 12, 2025. The DRC generally concurred with the proposed revisions proposed by the applicant and also suggested changes to the original facade design that the Commission felt was more in keeping with the original architecture of the building and its surroundings. They voted 5-0 to recommend approval with 4 plan revisions. The applicant agreed with the DRC's suggestion revision and has updated the proposed plans per their recommendation. Staff recommends the approval of the proposed ordinance as reflected of the DRC's recommendations. I move that the board approve the proposed ordinance as written.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson and Trustee O'Brien. Any discussion on item B? Trustee Augustine.
Thank you. I had a question just about, I was looking at the elevation and the drawing for the breakout, the build out. Is it 4 units or could it be less than 4? It looks like it has the potential for 4, but do we have decision? Do we have tenants? Or do we know how it's going to be used yet?
The proposal is for 4 retail units.
But we don't have any data on whether that's will be 4 or less yet? I mean, we don't have any information on.
The floor plan is for 4 units.
Okay. And
The applicant is here if you'd like to ask him.
okay, great.
Hi there.
And then I will also ask then, I'm just curious, is there then a parking spot for each of the 4 tenants in the back, or is that addressed?
Do you need to swear me in or no?
No,
Hi, I'm Mitch Goltz.
you're not under oath, but we hope you'll answer truthfully.
I'll just say, I'll try to answer truthfully. Mitch Goltz, the owner of the property. We are, to the next report, we have been delayed. We do have tenants committed for the whole project on the ground floor and are working towards some second floor users. We do have 4 users committed on the ground floor at present. We have, the plan at present is to do some sort of office, well, I don't want to say co-working, it could be co-working, but plus apartments. And then we have 10 parking spaces for the building that will go towards each of the units upstairs, but no retail, no parking dedicated for the retail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this item? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to item C, an ordinance approving a special use permit, site plan, and design review permit to authorize co-working in conjunction with retail sales at 30 South LaGrange Road, commonly referred to as formerly the Nixon property. That's referred to Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, President Kukler. Andrew Nass of 30 South LaGrange Road, LLC, the applicant, is the owner of the property at 30 South LaGrange Road and represents a business called Brick and Mortar. The applicant is requesting a special use permit, site plan approval, and design review permit to operate a co-working facility in conjunction with the retail sales at 30 South LaGrange Road. To bring some history in 2021, the applicant applied and was approved for a text amendment, special use permit, site plan approval, and design review permit for the co-working in conjunction with retail sales at the subject property. Those special uses and design review permits have since expired. Last fall, the applicant submitted a new application to allow the co-working in conjunction with retail sales. The Plan Commission conducted a public hearing on the application on November 12, 2024, and recommended approval of the application with conditions. The village board reviewed the application on January 13, 2025, and remanded it back to the Planning Commission for further consideration. Excuse me. Following the January 13, 2025 village board meeting, the applicant revised their plans and presented a revised application to the public hearing before the Planning Commission on March 11, 2025. One member of the public spoke up in opposition to the application. The Planning Commission deliberated at length, specifically on the proposed retail component of the business and whether it satisfied the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan and the C1 district's allowance for co-working in conjunction with retail sales. The commission voted 4-1 to recommend the approval of the application with 10 conditions as outlined in the Planning Commission's finding. Staff and the village attorney have prepared the attached ordinance, which is consistent with the plan's commission and direction. The Plan Commission recommends approval of proposed use site and plan review permit with the conditions as reflected in the attached ordinance. And I think it's probably important that we quickly review these. A space on the first floor of the subject property that is devoted exclusively to retail sales and must be maintained in a designated area in the approved site. The retail area must be open to the public and the general public, not to just to users of the co-working area on the subject property. The retail area must be staffed and employed by employees that solely engage in retail sales and not employees that have responsibility for supervising or renting out co-working space. If the retail area ceases to be operated for retail sales, the use of the rest of the subject property for co-working facility must also cease. The retail area must be open to the public for retail sales and for a minimum of 6 days a week and at least 8 hours per day on those 6 days. The retail area must be kept fully stocked and at all times with product and retail sales. An emergency button that directly connects to the police department, LTACC, must be installed and maintained in the common area of the co-working place. The special use permit is issued and only to the applicant and is for the sole benefit of the applicant and non-transferable. The common area of the co-working space on the first floor must be made available for retail users, and the space between the retail and the cafe must be open all the way for special events such as those and such as through a accordion door or other door that opens wider than the normal door. Again, the Plan Commission has recommended approval, and I recommend the approval of this ordinance as well.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Any discussion regarding this matter? Trustee Peterson.
Thank you, President Kukler. I had, in reading the draft, I thought that there were some inconsistencies in what I was reading here. The idea was to showcase startup or products from startups, entrepreneurial small firms or small businesses, and yet the example that was given was Starbucks in Target. That surprised me. Target is a big box national retailer, and certainly Starbucks is a multinational company. So I find that example to be inconsistent to what was being asked or what was being proposed. I have some concerns that this idea is not being well thought out. In fact, what I thought is that the Plan Commission was putting more effort into creating a viable plan for retail space in the first floor of that building.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson. Trustee Thompson.
And I think it may be important that the applicant, I see Andrew here, explains the new retail use, because when he planted the Plan Commission, he had presented that they have set up through the people that do the Sahi Bowl group that are now welcomed and part of our 2025 farmers market. They have other manufacturers of products here in Illinois. In fact, I think Andrew had 8 of them lined up ready to go to stock their materials, stock them in the basement, have them always there. But these would be locally produced products, from facial care to sweets and chocolates, and different products that are going to be locally produced Illinois products by entrepreneurial people. I think the problem with this deck is it does not include the presentation that they presented. The Starbucks was more an example of how you fit a small independent retail location inside a bigger, like, box store, store versus it being the retail that will be there. Obviously, Starbucks is not going to go into a site that has a location agreement with Blackberry Market anyway. So that, I think it would be good if he explained that a little bit, maybe to the people.
I'd welcome the applicant to come up and say whatever he'd like. And if anybody has questions, they feel free to ask. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Andrew Nass with Brick and Mortar. As you mentioned, the Starbucks example was simply just to state how co-retailing works, and not my example. When discussing co-retailing, there's online articles that discuss how that operates. And so it's an example was Target, big box, Starbucks is a version of that in terms of co-retailing and the benefits that come along with that, so that you can cross-promote, cross-market. Ultimately, Target has less overhead, right, because now Starbucks is participating in that, and they have a greater return holistically. So that was the idea. How that relates to us and co-retailing is exactly that. So we're able to have multiple startup brands, right? So these are brands that some might have seen at the farmers markets. Some might have never seen at any farmers market, right? Some might have seen because they're at other farmers markets, or they're at other locations, or solely sold online and seeking retail space. So these are startup brands that are awesome in nature, but most people have never heard of them. And so the idea is that these brands would, under one roof, would seem eclectic for sure, questionable potentially, but then when you realize that the thin thread that ties it all together is the fact that they're all startups and have founder stories as described in the deck, and that's the idea, right, is that there will be founders talks at brick and mortar, right, and that will open up into the cafe and into further back onto the first floor on a regular basis. So, and these startup brands, just so I say this, no one's better at selling their own product than the founders themselves. And so these founders are thrilled with the opportunity to be able to come and not only have shelf space, but then be able to have marketable events where they can invite their customers at large to participate. Because a lot of them are sold online or at farmers markets, they don't have that opportunity to meet with their customers at one given spot, shake hands, et cetera. And so they're very excited for that. And so the example, again, Starbucks, Target, maybe not the best, but that's the idea, is that these are startup brands, well curated, super engaging space where you get the opportunity to learn about that brand, that founder. The best example that I've had is, and I shared this at the last meeting, was, right, I was going to a party and I wanted to get a bottle of wine. And so when I went to go buy this bottle of wine, I won't say that I'm a wine connoisseur. So I'm reading, right, it's got little stories next to each bottle of wine, and I'm reading about it. And one of them talks about how the grape farmer and the wine company, right, they were both going out of business independently. I don't remember the exact story, but they were going out of business independently. They got introduced to one another. They were able to succeed collaboratively. And because of that, that wine is now sold on the shelf, and it's in front of you today. So I said, wow, that's amazing. That's a really cool, compelling story. I'm going to purchase this, and now I'm bringing this to the party, and I had the opportunity to share that with people at that event, right? And so that's the idea, is that of the different brands, there will be stories for everyone to hear, to listen to, and then ultimately, these founders are going to be super engaged. In fact, transparently, they all wanted to come tonight. We said it's probably not in the best interest for y'all to come, but they wanted to hand out. I mean, that's the type of entrepreneurs they are, right? They want to come, they want to hand out samples, they want to share how this is going to benefit the community, how this is going to benefit their companies. And so co-retailing is newer for sure, and we're excited that this is going to be the start of something pretty special, and obviously that would come out of LaGrange. Does that answer your question? Does that clear that up a little bit?
It answers my question.
Thank you, Andrew. Any other questions for the applicant? Did you have questions? No. Okay. Trustee Augustine?
Thank you, President Kugler. I think you guys have put together a very good pitch for brick and mortar. I think you did a nice job helping to explain how and showcase how the first floor will work, explain the different potential retailers that would be coming in. And I appreciate that. I do believe that co-working environments are good for a downtown community, as everybody here has expressed. When you first applied, there was, as you know, only one other co-working business, and now we have 3. But we're not here to discuss too many co-working businesses. We are here once again to review whether or not this concept meets the threshold for an exception to our first floor retail code requirement. To grant this exception to the rule is what's at stake. And one of the things I keep thinking about when I look at this is the identity of the space. The identity of the space initially was this, as you described, this unique, locally sourced product environment, but it was a store and it was a shop. And then in the last iteration, it was an acai bowl, kind of takeout window place with some inside seating and that didn't sit well. That was a complete 180 for me. And now we're back and we have the retail component, but we still have the acai bowl. And by the looks of it, and I don't know exactly how it breaks out, but it looks to be 50% or so of that small retail space would be somewhat dedicated to the acai bowl business, and the rest would be retail. So it's not too much retail. And that was really at the crux of I think the decision that many of us came to way back when, was that it had retail. And it had unique retail. In addition to that, again, taking myself back to when this was first discussed, this was a good idea at the time. It was very different back in 2021. But the times have changed and so has the concept. And it's not sitting perfectly well with me that this place that you described nicely as a retail environment is mainly an acai bowl environment. And what will people think of that first floor retail? Will they want to come in, or will they see the takeout window and think this is an acai bowl place? This is an ice cream or a dessert place. How does that drive traffic inside? How does that drive traffic people to the store? So the identity will be confusing. It does look like you're going to market it. You have notes in there that you would put as much into it online, but I don't see this as the retail space. And it is small to start with. It's a little expanded from the first iteration, but generally, it just doesn't appear to be the concept that I supported initially.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. Trustee Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'm concerned about, the loss of the retail space that's there. I think Trustee Augustine's points are well taken. When we first took this up 4 years ago, it was a very different concept, and it's a little improved from our recent review of it as well. I'm wondering if there might be a compromise or some further. We've placed a lot of conditions on them, which I like. I'm wondering if we might want to make a few more as a board and consider some other requirements. I don't really have any particular, but other than making the whole place retail on the first floor, but that of course eliminates a special use. So that's not really the game to play. But I'm just wondering if there's an appetite for that among the board. I think.
Okay. I see Trustee Peterson anxious to jump in there.
I am moving to amend the motion to add a condition where 50% of the first floor of the square footage must be devoted to retail sales when the retail sales is available, which it is my understanding is from 9 to 5, 6 days a week. That's a compromise that came to mind.
All right. I believe we need to have a second before we begin to discuss that, first of all, correct?
Yes, and also I want to make sure that we're also clear by what the condition amendment would be. So 50% must be for retail sales that include the area for both, call it shelving for retail items, as well as the acai.
So are you saying
area.
retail or restaurant?
So what we're
restaurant?
calling kind of the non-co-working space.
Yes,
Yep.
non-co-working
Okay.
space, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so first up, is there a second to that amendment?
I'd second that.
Trustee Gale seconds it. At this time, is that now on the floor? Since it's been moved and seconded?
Yep, you can debate it.
Okay. We can ask the applicant to come back up, or if the trustees have a question or statement before he comes up. Andrew, I'd invite you, if you want, to come back up and indicate whether or not your thoughts on 50% retail space.
Sorry, I was just pulling up the plans. So I appreciate the conversation. I'd love to figure out how to make this work. I guess to preface, when we came our second go around with just the SAE, we were closer to 400 square feet. So now this is the largest retail footprint at 650 square feet that we've come with to date. Also, on average, any service-based businesses that have this component are around 470 square feet. So we're greater than the majority of businesses with the same special use stipulation, which is why we were hoping to be able to move forward. The other component here is just functionality of the space. There's aspects that, as you can see in the architect's letter, that make this extremely challenging to move back further. One being the stairway going to the basement, which is there for deliveries, right, to avoid deliveries through the front door. And so just functionally speaking, being able to get those deliveries in. And then the further you bring the space back, it really makes it a challenge from usability for the dual concept. So this is as far back from the architect's perspective as we could get. Yeah, we've moved this around many different ways. Yeah. Again, other businesses in our situation are at 470 square feet. This is at almost 650. And now we're saying that we want to go to 1,700 square feet when the majority of retail and restaurants are downsizing in this economy and just in the marketplace, right? And with storage, which makes up a large portion of some of these stores, right, we have almost, I think it's 1,800 square feet with the storage, right?
That's the basement?
With the basement, right? So a lot of the retailers, they'll take these larger square feet, right, and either not use them at all, or they're simply storage, right? So the actual showroom, if you will, of these retailers are not much larger than what we have displayed. Certainly open to, yeah, we want to maximize shelf space, which is what we're doing. And as you can see on here, we've got, yeah, retail space provided, yeah, the 644, the basement's at 1198, so almost 1,850 square feet in total square footage. And so it's a long building, right? And so now it's unfortunate that, right, we've got a concept that works, that's larger than other businesses that are seeking the special use, and now we're being penalized because we have a large first floor. Yeah.
It looks like Trustee Gale has a statement or question.
Yeah, and it's more of a question directed at Charity at first. I get a little crossed up if you can. So it's really two questions. One is the sort of shared space aspect, the door. I mean, I was kind of surprised and didn't quite get it, like all the discussion of a door that separates space. And then the second is to the question of what is like a typical square footage for, like, because I think of this as like it's almost like a convenience shop, if you will. But so if you could try to tackle those for me.
Sure. I'm going to take the second one first and then go back to the first question, because the second is a bit more straightforward. So in 2021, staff gathered information about various different first floor sizes for properties within the downtown, and that's what the applicant is referring to. So downtown retail and personal service businesses have first floor sizes ranging from 700 to 12,000 square feet. The average retail showroom is just under 1,400 square feet in the downtown. And service uses with required retail areas, so like those personal services like fitness salons and those sorts of things that have required retail areas, those retail areas range in size from 850 square feet to 3,400 square feet. On average, service uses with required retail areas devote about 470 square feet or 28% of their total first floor area to their required retail showroom.
And so like examples of that would be like, would like Stretch Lab be one of the ones that would kind of fit into that, or?
Yeah, Stretch Labs is more recent than this
Right.
data,
That's why-
but that is
that's
an
why I
example. Another example would be like Form Bar and Fitness or any of the other fitness studios in the downtown that have a required retail area.
Okay, thanks for that.
And then to your other question about the door. So the easiest way to describe that, I believe, is to look at Exhibit B, the approved site plan, as an attachment to the ordinance. So you can see the retail shelving, and then you can see these kind of like, almost like accordion style doors or bifold doors. Originally, that was just a standard door. The Plan Commission heard what the applicant was talking about with these founders events where the entrepreneurs featured within the retail space would have an opportunity to feature their products and make use of more of the first floor than just that 644 square foot area for the retail. The Plan Commission felt that in order for that to really function, you needed the space between the retail and the co-working to be able to be more physically open to allow for more flow of traffic.
Okay, and so the idea would be that those doors open and they can make use of that space. Okay, if I'm reading it, that's another 129 square feet.
That's the portion that they label as the cafe, which I know is a little confusing because the cafe is for the co-working users only. It's not open to the public. It's not retail most of the time. If they had these founders events, then that space could be opened up. The other areas on the first floor that are generally for the benefit of the co-working use could be made available for those founders events.
And just a quick follow-up, was there discussion then of like just eliminating the door altogether and just making that part of the retail space?
There wasn't discussion with the Plan Commission on that. I think because the applicant has talked previously about how the hours of the co-working facility are 24/7, and the retail operation is obviously not, and so they want to be able to physically separate those during times that the retail use is not open.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Augustine?
Thank you, President Kugler. I was wondering, Attorney Schuster, if you could help clarify something that we spoke about previously, which was how we kind of justify the square footage retail for the Stretch Labs and the exercise facilities who are in the retail district. How do we differentiate that from this? Because I think the numbers that you might be using are largely coming from those types of retail exceptions that we have made on this board.
That's correct.
So I think it's up to each trustee to kind of figure out in their mind, whether it meets the special use standards. But I think that one thing is it's not comparing apples to apples. Because if you're talking an exercise facility, for example, its role in the downtown and use is a little different, right? If you're having classes every hour and you are having, let's say, 20 people come in for an hour and then they're leaving, and you repeat that, 6 times a day, that operates very differently in terms of the vibrancy of the downtown. It operates differently in terms of perhaps people go there for an hour and then leave and go get a cup of coffee, go out to lunch, go shopping down the street or whatnot. So the co-working use is a little different in the sense of my assumption, and I could be wrong, but people aren't going into a co-working space for 30 minutes or an hour, but often for many, many hours. And so it's a different type of intensity of use, which has its benefits and it has its drawbacks. And so I don't know from a planning perspective if the idea of saying co-working with retail on the first floor of some capacity is meant to necessarily be entirely comparable, because they're different uses. And so your analysis, I think, is more focused on, we have co-working with the first floor, a portion of the first floor retail, is whether or not that as a use satisfies the special use standards. If the comparison is useful to get to that spot, you can use it as, but they're different uses. And they do different things.
Trustee Thompson.
Yeah, so when I look and you talk about Trustee Gale's stretch lab, but also Get in Shape for Women, which is a workout facility. And then you go further up the street, you've got Flying V Martial Arts. These are both first floor businesses like Stretch Lab. If you go to Stretch Lab, you can buy socks or you can buy yoga pants. If you go to Flying Arts, you can buy karate outfits. If you go to the women's place, you can buy yoga pants. And from everyone I've ever talked to, I can go buy them cheaper somewhere else. So I'm not going to buy them there. And also, I'm never going to walk in those businesses. I go to Stretch Lab, but I don't buy anything from Jay. I use it for Stretch Lab. But you're right, Jay's, those businesses do bring people downtown, but also the co-working places. But I don't think it's fair to compare his retail operation, because his retail operation is truly built to bring customers in that are just walking down the street, be it restaurant, be it, excuse me, be it people buying the products, where these other three businesses who, if you looked at their retail sales, are probably very, very small, are not selling retail products. We made that exception to create that, but they're not driving you to go in the store and buy a karate outfit unless you're taking karate lessons. So it's a very different thing. He's going to try to drive customers into it. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare retail space to retail space, and also to say this is the only business that will have a weird retail office space on the first floor, because these other businesses are just service businesses that formerly were not allowed on the first floor. And I think we just need to look at it differently in how we try to bring businesses back into downtown.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Any other questions, comments?
If I may, also just from a retail perspective, from our vantage point, we're retailing on the first floor here specifically, and there's a reason for the layout. We're retailing space, right? And so we have the market, and behind there we have the conference room and the boardroom, which, just so we're clear, both of those are hourly on-demand services where they're booked an hour at a time. And so this is the retailing use of space for the community. And how we really view this and how this has come to be in these other communities is, the best analogy would be a rec center, right? So this is a business hub for the community, similar to how a rec center is, anyone can come in and utilize the facility, right? And you need it for different reasons. Same thing here, right? We're retailing space, and anybody in the community can come and utilize this on an on-demand basis. And so that's the idea, is that the market is going to be able to supply items for the conference room, for the boardroom, right? Whether it's acai bowls, whether it's coffee. But, and we also went a step further, and we haven't shared this yet, but we've been talking with hotel, I'll put it this way, they're experts in the hotel industry who have shared with us how successful markets are at their hotels. So much so, like from our vantage point, like a gym would be important to have at a hotel. Not at all. The markets drive a significant amount of revenue, so much so that they're incorporating them in more brands. They're adjusting their entire first floor layout for these given markets. And they pointed out, like an example would be like Foxtrot is a market. So it's similar to that. What we're doing is similar to that without the coffee. And we explained to them what we're doing with startup brands, and they said, oh, we love it, right? They said, because there's been talks with us, talking in terms of boutique hotels, in terms of doing a collaboration there. And they said the fact that you guys are down the path on these markets is tremendous. They said right now in the markets we have legacy brands, mature brands, but they said what people want is they want experiences, and they want experiential retail, just like we believe people want experiential co-working. But experiential retail in terms of when they go somewhere, they want, and this is from the hotel folks, but they want to immerse themselves in the experience of that region, wherever they are. And so this is the opportunity in these markets to do this for the Chicagoland area at the market for brick and mortar. But I just wanted to share that that's, again, we've had these, they are, if I name some of the hotels, you would absolutely know them. And they're taking a tech-enabled approach to them where where you're able to check out on your own. There's no one that works there, and you're able to go through. And they said the experience that you're able to create, if you can actually do this with startup brands, they said is going to be tremendous, and everyone's going to love it. And so this just piggybacks on the idea that, and I have a friend who owns a gym. It's a chain, and he has the retail. I literally went there. I asked him. I said, we're doing this retail. How much do you guys sell? He said the same thing. He said, stuff's really expensive. Like, we kind of force people, they have to do some of it to be able to go with our services. They need to buy this because it's for this. And I said, you ever get anyone that just walks out off the street to buy this? And he's in a very walkable shopping center. He said, never. If you're not coming to our location, you're not walking in the door. And so from our vantage point, right, it's quite the opposite. And not only the market, but also the first floor is geared towards the on-demand retailing of space.
Thank you, Andrew. Any other questions or comments from the board? Trustee Augustine.
Thank you for some of your examples. With regard to the hotel retail concept, I was just in a Marriott recently, little store. I mean, all the hotels I'm going to, especially if they've been refreshed, they have these things. But that's more of a captive audience. So it's a very different situation here. I think people can kind of walk around town and get what they need. So a hotel is a little bit of a different example, but I see where you're going, and it certainly is popping up. Grange doesn't really have an issue. Our concept, we don't have an issue necessarily filling our stores. There are high and low points where there may be some vacancies. Different cycles can do that. Coming out of COVID did that, as you know. We had a few more vacancies. But generally, as you know, and that's why this rule is in place, that's why we're talking about it, is that we are seeking retail, or we're seeking, as Attorney Schuster explained, kind of these high-frequency concepts that are in a little bit of a different category, but similar place to the concept that to the special circumstance you're trying to get. But the village has worked really hard to try to promote retail and to not necessarily have to make too many exceptions, but we do. So that's just different. And I've seen your stores. I've looked at what you have in Burr Ridge and Deerfield. They're really lovely. You know, it has nothing to do with concept or build out. No doubt it would do well, but getting to the heart of the point of what we're trying to justify an exception for, it gets hard when the concept has changed a few times and is not necessarily, it does seem like an uneven playing field now to the other industries that are here and have done so on the second floor. So I'm just having a hard time supporting it.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. Not seeing any other questions or comments. Attorney Schuster, I guess I have a procedural questions on where we're at and what it all means. So currently, the motion is as presented, the ordinance as presented by staff amended to say 50% of the first floor would need to be retail or restaurant. I hear Trustee Thompson with concerns of that requirement. So would he vote no because he doesn't want it?
So, yeah, so the first vote would be on the amendment. And so a vote yes would be to add a condition that said at least 50% must be for retail sales or the restaurant space. And if the vote fails,
And how many votes does that need?
that would take 4 votes. And so then if that failed, we'd be back at the ordinance as drafted, without that condition in it. And if it passes, on the floor would be the ordinance with that added condition.
And if it failed, then it fails.
Correct.
Okay. Does everybody understand the procedure there?
Time, if
Yeah,
the
so-
amended motion fails,
So we vote on the amendment first, whether
Right.
or not we should include the condition as part of the ordinance.
Mhm.
If that vote fails, we go back to the ordinance as drafted in the packet, and there'll be a separate vote on that. If it, so that's if it fails. If it passes, you would then go to a vote on the ordinance with that added condition. So right now, the first vote is should we add a condition, and then you'll have a vote on the ordinance. So, does that make sense?
I have a question. So I understand the 50%, but with what we just talked about, was it 28% would be aligned with all of the other similar business uses? I'm just curious how we arrived at 50%.
Do you want to explain 50%, or is it just what you felt?
I can't say that I analyzed your square footage, but I am looking at the first floor contains a conference room and a rather large boardroom. So these are and I understand where you're saying that these would be available to the public almost hourly, but that is not retail space for products. That's co-working space. So that's what I'm seeing, is that the back area of the first floor is predominantly co-working space. That's what I'm seeing. So I would ask that we proceed with what you are advising.
Okay, Trustee Thompson, I think, wants to add something.
But I think we need to clarify his question. Is it 28% is what these retail spaces take up?
That's correct. Based on the 2021 data, approximately 28%, when it's a service-based business that's required to have retail, on average, 28% of that first floor is devoted to the retail showroom. Now, back to Attorney Schuster's point, it's the board's evaluation, how comparable you find co-working to be to the other sorts of personal services that are allowed in the downtown. But that's the data point.
But as drawn, what percent of the first floor are you at retail right now?
20%.
Are we ready for the vote? Yep, Trustee Austin.
Just one more thing that keeps coming to mind. Your retail concept can just continue iterating endlessly, right? So some of the other businesses that have this retail component, the retail supports their main business. And here, if these products don't fail, you can switch them out, do any number of things that you've discussed. So that works out well for you. And part of it that I'm thinking about, and I feel like I'm not quite sure how to say it, but you aren't doing the retail business because you want to do the retail business. You're doing the retail business because you want first floor co-working. And I think that's just where, even if we go to 50%, I'm just concerned with repercussions down the road and what signal that sends. But
I promise you, and I've had conversations with Stretch Labs owners, they don't want to do the retail business either. They do that because that's what's required for them to be in the location that they want to do it. And so respectfully, I think multiple of the businesses that are in the same situation, like they've discovered these retail directions, right, in order to be in these locations. For us, what's unique is that there's lots of avenues to ensure success, and it's a vibrancy to the downtown. Whereas again, like as we've stated, people aren't walking into these other businesses unless they have an appointment to go there or a reason to be there. So for what it's worth, I don't know that other businesses have any strong commitment to these. I haven't heard of any business, I guess, that's in LaGrange. I'd be curious that has a strong commitment to that retail component of the service-based businesses that are doing that.
Right, but they're probably not going to open a coffee shop instead of selling shirts. You know, which you have, but you have that option because it's not at all connected to what you do on the first floor.
Sure.
It's just a thought.
I don't
you know?
have shirts they
And I
actually
don't know
sell.
how I don't know how it works if the acai bowl part of it fails and something else comes in, and how does that? Do we have to vote on that again, or do you just?
Yeah. So if that didn't work out, right, we'd have the opportunity to bring in a different food provider, service provider to be able to fill that, or we have the opportunity to expand the market, right? I mean, if we all believe. If we all knew right now, what we're missing in this conversation is historical data, right? If we had historical data that said, this is how successful the market's going to be, and we knew it was going to be successful and could yield results of half the first floor, there'd be no conversation, right? We'd vote and be all set to move forward. That's the unknown, right? And that's why these other businesses, 28% of their square footage or 470 square feet, is dedicated to that because they know how well everything else is going to produce. They don't know how well that's going to do. And proven over time, these businesses, right, Stretch Lab, there's lots of locations, right, outside of LaGrange. They've proven that they're willing to, 470 square feet is the maximum they're willing to allot to that of their square footage, so 28%, right, and which means to me, it's not the revenue producing aspect of the business. And so same thing here, right? We're saying we're going larger in square footage, right? 650 square feet. And it's an unknown for us. We're excited about it. We've put real time, energy, and effort, and we have real vendors that are really excited to be here and to be in downtown LaGrange and bring their following to downtown LaGrange. What's also nice is that if it's wildly successful, we can expand, right? We will delete the cafe. We can move it back. We can continue to grow that on the first floor. We would love that. That would be great. And it would be good to know that for our future locations because we are doing more and a market based on all the hotel conversations that we've had, strongly considering it. So we're very excited that this is on the docket and we're very excited to build this and see how this performs. And our hope is that it can perform as well as we all hope it will perform, so we take up more space, because that would be great. But again, what we're saying right now is that let's have a starting point here. It works with the building infrastructure. It's larger than all of our peers. And give us the opportunity to prove this out and say, and then if it's successful, we have then the space on the first floor. That's the reason for the open floor plan there. We're not doing that in any other location. Is because if it works, right, we can grow that and ultimately the cafe can be consumed by the retail space.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready for the vote. Again, the vote that's pending is the ordinance as written with the amendment saying that 50% of the first floor needs to be retail or restaurant. And with that, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Aye, she said.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Nay.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
With 4 votes, that passes. No, that was the amendment.
No, right, so now it's a vote on the ordinance with that in it.
Okay, so that was just a vote to put the ordinance into the...
Condition in the ordinance.
Into it. I didn't quite understand that, but I'm sure that's correct. So again, with a roll call vote on now the ordinance, what I said, so I said it wrong before. So now we're voting on the ordinance as amended.
I'm sorry, can I ask a quick question of Attorney Schuster? The approved floor plan does not comply with that condition? So is there additional language that needs to be added to the motion?
So it would be, I think that's a good point. So I think it's the recommendation, I think, would be approval of the ordinance with that added condition, provided that a floor plan be presented and approved by the community development director that shows at least 50% of the first floor dedicated to retail space.
And is there a time limit for that?
In terms of
when the applicant would...
Has to produce it?
Yes. I mean, do we have this special use expired? Is this something that...
Yeah, I mean, they would have to present to get building permits. And so they wouldn't be, if the special use expired before they even applied. So I don't know that we need to put a time frame on the actual production of the floor plan as much as we wouldn't allow them to get a building permit until they present that to the community development director.
Okay.
Is that clear? And I'm sorry.
It's clear to me. I'm just...
Unless the board would want to see a new floor plan, which is your prerogative too.
Well, it's not that I want to see a new floor plan. What I want is, if this were to wait another 4 years, I think it should come before the board to vote on it again.
I think I can address that. If, per our standard special use provisions in the code, if they do not apply for and receive a building permit and pursue construction within a year, they would have to request an extension of the special use permit, or it would expire.
Okay, that answers my question. Yep. Is everybody clear on what's pending now? This is the ordinance with the 2 additions, one being the 50% of the first floor being retail or restaurant, the second being that an appropriate floor plan be presented to staff. With that, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Thompson?
Nay.
Nay. Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Nay.
And I believe that takes it to President Kukler.
I'll say aye. So you have 4 votes. And again, it's my understanding that if I voted nay, then the project itself would have died. So that's where we're at. We are done with C.
So it passes.
So it passes with the 2 amendments.
With the amendment, yep.
Moving on, at this time, the floor is open for anyone from the public that has comments on matters not on tonight's agenda.
Hi, Rose Nassif, 911 South Stone, and I'm here to talk about the waste hauling contract, which is set to expire this summer. It's my understanding that the staff is in the process of negotiating a new contract, so I'm here to remind you that waste harms our health and the environment in many ways. Whenever we purchase an item, from single-use plastics to electronics to clothing, pollution and greenhouse gases are created from the mining of the materials, the production at factories, and the transportation to stores and our homes. If we use the item briefly before discarding it, we are wasting energy and incredibly valuable resources while polluting our air, soil, and water. After we consume the items, we expend more resources to transport them to a landfill, recycling center, or compost facility, and there more energy and resources are devoted to processing or storing the materials, making sure they don't further pollute our air, water, and soil. So my point is generating waste is bad for human health and the environment. And because of these negative impacts, as well as the village's commitment to working collaboratively with other Chicagoland communities to reduce waste and greenhouse gas emissions, the village should take steps to reduce the amount of waste generated in the village. One way is to charge households according to the amount of waste they create. It would be a fair user pay program that would encourage residents to consider ways to reduce their own waste. So as you know, I chair the Environmental Quality Commission, or EQC, and in the past, the village board has sought input about waste hauling from the EQC, which is comprised of a diverse group of individuals, residents. With the belief the village board was again seeking input from the EQC regarding the contract, the commission researched waste, recycling, and composting issues and met with the current hauler to learn about the process and challenges of managing waste. Based on its research, back in January, the EQC drafted a report to the village board recommending services to consider in a new contract. The goal was to assist the village in securing a practical, fair, and environmentally responsible waste hauling program. The staff has received the EQC's report, but I've learned that the entire board might not have received the report. Typically, the staff forwards the EQC's report to the village board, often combining other relevant materials with the report. So other commissioners and I would like to know why the report was not forwarded to the entire board and whether the EQC should send the reports directly to the village board members in the future. So since the staff appears to be negotiating the contract already, I'd like the board members to know the EQC's recommendations. One was to solicit bids for the waste hauling services. It will allow the village to communicate its preferences and consider features beyond price alone. It's desirable for households to have a variety of options to meet their financial needs as well as their level of conservation. Second recommendation was provide a fair volume-based program that charges each household a fee proportional to the amount of waste it generates. So it can be similar to our current program, which is a hybrid program with some tweaks that the commissioners wanted, perhaps a recycling toter to people that are using the sticker program, increase the cost for households that generate a larger volume of waste or recycling, specifically like those really large 95-gallon toters, just a bigger differential, offer year-round food scrap composting, and provide more appropriately sized composting toters. Apparently people that subscribe to the compost program, the toter is just really huge, and they just want something more manageable. Another option would be to have 3 different receptacles with proportionate pricing. So if you have a smaller, you could have, every household could have recycling, waste, and composting, and if it's smaller receptacles, you get charged, let's say $5 a month. Second, 32-gallon would be $10 a month, 64 would be $20 a month, et cetera, 2 times, 3 times. Just everybody would have that. And then there's another option I recently learned about from Wheaton. So every household gets to choose a garbage receptacle, either 35, 65, or 95-gallon, and they get to choose their recycling receptacle, 35, 65, or 95-gallon, and each receptacle has an RFID code, and you only get charged when the hauler picks that up. So if you put out garbage, you put it out when your bin is full, you get charged only when that gets picked up for garbage and recycling. So there's separate charges, but I talked to somebody who's very knowledgeable and expert in this field, knows all the haulers, is familiar with Wheaton's program, said everyone loves it, very fair, easy, no stickers for garbage and recycling, no fees unless you use the service, you're rewarded with lower fees if you don't put your garbage out until the bin is full. Haulers don't have to stop at every house, and the hauler was surprised how well Wheaton residents use it.
So other recommendations, in addition to a volume-based program, which obviously there's different options for that, is to educate residents about the proper disposal of garbage, recycling, and organics. Placing unacceptable items in receptacles creates safety and operational problems for haulers, impedes the processing of materials, and contaminates entire loads. So I walk through and I see items in the wrong places. Our community needs more education. And finally, we ask that the hauler provides us with data about materials collected and level of contamination. So since I believe LaGrange is not going out to bid as recommended by the EQC, I hope the current hauler has the capability to provide the level of services that was desired by residents, possibly with an option like that in Wheaton. So those are my personal thoughts about waste, as well as the EQC's recommendations. The EQC is planning to give a formal presentation at the next board meeting. Includes more than just waste. We will present suggestions on how the village can take steps to support the Regional Climate Action Plan, which the village endorsed last year. It's important now more than ever that communities lead the effort to protect health and the environment. Commissioners and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here next at the next board meeting, and we look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you for your efforts leading the EQC, and thank you for all the members of the EQC. I know that staff has begun meeting with Flood Brothers, and I know that many of the items will be discussed that the EQC has suggested.
Hi, my name is Pero Delic. I got commercial building on Bruce 140 North LaGrange Road. That's a corner, Brewster and LaGrange Road. That's a southwest corner, and it's kind of 12 offices. And my tenants, they kind of ask me if, because of safety reasons, I can ask you that they make some crosswalk from east side of the street to the west.
Across LaGrange Road.
Yeah, that's just border, yeah.
Right.
So that's my question.
Yeah, again, it's an IDOT road, and we're very limited on where we can put crosswalks and things of that nature. So I can ask staff to look into the feasibility, but I appreciate you coming and sharing that concern.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pluto?
I'm back.
Yeah, please try to keep it to 3 minutes.
I'll keep it as short as possible. I'm tired too.
Thank you.
This is a garbage gondola, about an 8-yarder. And is this legal to have in a parking lot in LaGrange without an enclosure around it?
I have no idea. I don't know if staff would know that off the top of their head or not.
New dumpsters are required to have enclosures, but we have many locations in LaGrange that have had dumpsters for decades that don't have enclosures because they are
let me
existing.
ask you this. This is at the 48th Street parking lot of Sedgwick Park, and it looks real tacky to me.
I'm sorry, is it the Park District?
It's the Park District.
Okay.
And I asked them last year to move it, and they moved it, but it's back out there again. And it's right where the basketball courts were. So it really looks pretty tacky. And it's dangerous with those steel rods sticking out. If kids are riding their bikes around, they could get hurt. It's an eyesore. So their parking lot, a 2-lane parking lot should have 24 foot, I believe. And that parking lot is not striped right. You cannot get an emergency vehicle into that parking lot if your life depended on it. So if the fire department had to get an ambulance in there and go around the parking lot, it ain't happening. And I don't know who they get to do these jobs, or if they're permitted or they're inspected by the village. They don't look right to me according to the things that you guys have. Next item, real quick. Speed limit on East Avenue, Mr. Kukler.
Yes.
Were they talking about knocking that speed limit down from 40 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour in that construction zone?
I haven't heard.
I thought I heard that at one of the meetings.
I haven't heard that.
Has anybody contacted IDOT on that?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, well, it's a dangerous situation for us. There's 20 houses on that street, and it's a 40-mile-an-hour limit. So I think it would be nice if that got temporarily knocked down to at least 35, because we don't have a lot of available police officers to run traffic there. And I asked about the automated ticket issues, which would be legal for that with the state of Illinois, since it's an IDOT construction zone, but nobody seems to care about that until somebody gets killed on East Avenue. So I would hope that you people would take an interest in our safety. And last but not least, I'm still looking for a speed limit sign at the end of 49th Street at East Avenue. Baseball season has started and there's zillions of kids running across that street. Are we going to do something there? And that's your job for safety. Right on the first 2 pages of the zoning and ordinances, you're supposed to keep safety in these streets. We don't have a sign there. And it's probably one of the most important places to put a speed limit sign is by that park. And good night.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto.
Hi, everyone. I'll be very quick. Laura West, 140 Sunset. Just in the recent election, congrats to everybody for retaining their seats. I think the village spoke infrastructure and investment in that and continuing the momentum and all the hard work that all of you have done, I think has remained the biggest issue. And I'm grateful that you're all able to continue your jobs in doing that. The budget obviously was very long, detailed, thought out, and mentioned a lot about capital planning and whatnot. It's hard to decipher exact funds for exact projects, and I really do hope and feel strongly that I want to see those numbers for the flooding north of 47th. I believe that will come to fruition as other things come into place, but I look forward to continuing to see the progress and updates there and the good work of the board on taking care of residents from a flooding standpoint. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. West. Thank you for your kind comments. We don't have any good updates, that's for sure. The 50th Street project is moving along, although one of the opportunities, and I think it was considered a long shot to get federal money for that project, doesn't look like that's happening. Correct me if I'm wrong, Village Manager Knight. And then the project, which I know you're most concerned about, which some people call the LT project, I call the Sunset and Elm project, that we were hoping to get federal money. That's kind of in this, boy, the federal government appears to have shut down and it's not giving any money. I'm still hopeful that someday it will be restarted, the federal government, and at that time, that project will be one of the projects that's funded. The MWRD has indicated that without federal funding, they're not going to partner with us, which is unfortunate. If we'll take money from anybody. We've gotten money from the state so far, but we need more. So we're continuing to work on that, and we're hopeful, but we don't have any good news to report. With that, I would open it up to trustee comments. And I know we are going into closed session, so I will read that, but first, trustee comments, if any. Seeing none, at this time, the village board intends to meet in closed session under the provisions of the Illinois Open Meetings Act and Section 2C1 to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. Section 2C2 to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and Section 2C11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing pending or probable litigation. The village board will not reconvene to open session as no formal action will occur following the closed session. May I have a motion and a second to enter into closed session?
I move we enter into closed session.
Second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. We will now go downstairs for closed session. Thank you, everyone.